In 1821, a ship captain buried a fortune in gold and jewels on a remote island. 2 centuries later, we still don't know if it's there. The accepted story is straightforward. During Peru's independence war, the Spanish viceroy ordered his captain, Benito Bonito, to smuggle the Lima Cathedral's treasure out of the city. Bonito sailed to Cocos Island in the Pacific, buried the hoard, and vanished. The treasure, valued at millions in today's money, has never been found. This is what every expedition has hunted for. This is what every book repeats. And for 200 years, this narrative has shaped how we've searched. But let's examine what we actually know. In 1821, Lima was in chaos. The Spanish crown was losing South America. Royalist forces were collapsing. The viceroy, José Fernando de Abascal, made a decision: secure the city's most valuable assets before the independence armies reached the gates. He had days, maybe weeks. Gold from the cathedral, the royal mint. Private fortunes, estimates range from $300 million to $600 million in modern currency. The weight alone, roughly 60 tons of precious metals and gems. Benito was a trusted captain in the Spanish merchant fleet. He had experience running contraband, avoiding pirates, navigating remote waters. The viceroy's choice made sense. A man with a clean record, a fast ship, and the motive of a massive payoff. Benito agreed. The treasure was loaded aboard the Mary Dear, or possibly the Relampago. Sources disagree on the vessel's name. This is where the first crack appears. We have no official Spanish documents confirming the shipment, no royal ledger, no signed receipt. What we do have are secondhand accounts. A sailor named John Keating supposedly told his story to a British officer decades later. Another version came from a German explorer named August Gissler, who spent years on Cocos Island in the 1890s searching for the treasure. A third emerged from a prisoner named James Bowden, who claimed Benito had confessed to him. Each account placed the treasure in a different location. Each came with gaps and inconsistencies. By the time historians collected these stories, they were already 50 to 100 years old. Here's the critical detail. Benito never returned to Spain. He never claimed the viceroy's reward. He never wrote a letter explaining where the treasure lay. Instead, he simply disappeared from the historical record after 1821. Now, under pressure, facing a chaotic war zone and a fortune in his hands, what would Benito have done? The accepted explanation assumes he buried the treasure and died with the secret. But consider the alternative. What if Benito took the gold for himself and vanished into anonymity? In 1844, a British naval officer named Edward Teach claimed to have found Benito's diary. The diary allegedly described the burial site, a specific location on Cocos Island, marked by rocks and trees. Teach's account became the foundation for every expedition that followed. But here's the problem. The diary was never publicly displayed. No scholar ever examined the original. Teach's credibility rested entirely on his word. And Teach, it turns out, had a financial motive. He was selling expedition rights to wealthy investors. Between 1846 and 1900, at least 8 major expeditions landed on Cocos Island. They dug, they blasted rock, they followed maps drawn from Teach's description. They found nothing, not a single coin, not a single jewel. The absence of evidence is itself evidence. If 60 tons of precious metals had been buried there, even 2 centuries of weathering wouldn't erase every trace. Metal doesn't vanish. Gold doesn't decompose. In 1891, August Gissler, the German explorer, spent 3 years on Cocos Island, conducting the most thorough search of the era. He had resources, time, and a methodical approach. He found archaeological evidence of human occupation. He found old artifacts. He found nothing that resembled the Lima treasure. Before he left, Gissler wrote something revealing. The treasure is a myth created by greedy men. He believed the fortune either never reached the island, or it was removed long ago by someone else. This is where the real story emerges. The treasure likely never reached Cocos Island at all. Here's the strategic decision Benito faced. Sail 3,000 miles to a remote, uncharted island with 60 tons of gold, or disappear into the Caribbean or South American coast with enough wealth to live as a king. He had a crew. He had a ship. He had no one watching. The viceroy was defeated. Spain was losing its empire. No one was coming after him. The Cocos Island legend served a purpose for those who invented and perpetuated it. Edward Teach profited from selling expeditions. Investors dreamed of fortune. Newspapers sold copies. Historians wrote books. The myth was more valuable than the truth. A buried treasure that no one could find was far more profitable than admitting a captain had simply stolen a fortune and vanished into history. Modern analysis supports this. Metallurgists have noted that 60 tons of gold, buried in tropical soil for 2 centuries, would leave chemical residue. Magnetometers would detect it. Satellite imagery would show disturbance patterns. None of these technologies have ever found anything on Cocos Island that matches the treasure's supposed location. The absence isn't mysterious, it's conclusive. So where is the Lima treasure? Most likely, it never existed as a single buried hoard. The viceroy's wealth was probably distributed, some smuggled by Benito, some by other officers, some seized by independence forces, some lost in the chaos of war. It was never one fortune buried in one place. It was a dispersed fortune, claimed piece by dozens of people over decades. The romantic narrative of a single treasure on a single island was invented afterward, to make sense of a messier reality. The cost of this myth has been real. Hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on expeditions. Years of lives dedicated to a phantom. Forests cleared, islands scarred, ecosystems disrupted. All for a treasure that almost certainly never existed as described. The decision to search made sense at the time, the evidence seemed credible, the potential payoff enormous. But evidence degrades, stories compound, and what begins as a reasonable gamble becomes a multi-generational obsession. The Cocos Island treasure teaches us something uncomfortable about how history works. We prefer clean narratives. We prefer mysteries with solutions. We prefer the idea that somewhere a fortune waits to be found. The truth, that a man made a choice under pressure, took the money and disappeared, is less satisfying. It's also more likely, and it's a lesson that applies far beyond one remote island. When you encounter the next lost treasure story, ask the hard questions. Who benefits from the mystery staying unsolved? How old is the primary evidence? What would you do under the same pressure, with the same information? The answers rarely lead to buried gold, but they almost always lead somewhere real. Subscribe. Each week we dismantle another historical myth that shaped how the world searches for truth.